All right. Hi, guys. Welcome. A few people trickling in here, and we're going to give everyone else some more time to get into the meeting. Doesn't officially start till 1:30, so another minute or so. See a few new faces that I haven't seen before. A few new names, I should say, no faces. All right, about another minute or so, and we'll kick things off. Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for coming today. My name is Jacob. I'll be one of your co-hosts here. Today, we're going to be talking about Microsoft Bookings. Sounds like a great booking app to use, especially, for individual and small businesses. And I'm sure we're going to see a lot more implementations at scale here throughout the process. I just want to mention our upcoming event next month before we get going, and that's Good Governance in Microsoft Teams and SharePoint. That's going to be one that you don't want to miss, especially if you're using Teams. I know a lot of people are. We certainly do, and so that's certainly a good one to check off. For anyone who has a question today, you can feel free to use the Q&A button down below, and we'll either answer it, we'll message you back there, or we'll stop and talk about it. We usually try and answer questions as they come in, but if we don't have enough time, we'll get to the end and we'll save some time there for us to answer those questions. We usually like to follow up with a survey. Usually comes about 24 hours after this webinar. We'd like your feedback, especially for future topics and what we can do better and things that everyone's interested in. So we really appreciate that feedback as well. Before we begin, I just want to introduce you to CompuWorks founding partner and my co-host, Alan Bauman.
Hi, awesome. Thank you, Jacob. I appreciate it. And yes, we do use your feedback. So we appreciate it when you take some time to fill out those surveys. A lot of the topics that we pick, we pick from requests that you guys make. So, keep them coming. Love to get those. So thanks for being here. Bookings is something that I, quite frankly, don't know a lot about. I personally haven't really used it. So as usual, I'm very interested in this topic as an attendee as much as anything else. And we actually, at the end, we'll go through some of the upcoming webinars we've just scheduled out through May. So if you have your pencils handy, you can jot those down, or else we'll be sending those out in emails too, so you don't have to worry too much about that. Once again with us today is Jolynn Reen. Jolynn has really been a kind of the foundation of our instructor crew here, and has really done the bulk of the sessions we've had. And I think we're coming up on about 1.5 years, maybe even a little bit more.
I think so.
Yeah, right. I think we started in June of 2020. And for those of you who don't know, we have been recording all of these sessions. This session is being recorded. And there is a training library that lives on our website. And so all of this stuff is available there. If you had a colleague, a friend who couldn't make it today, feel free to share that with them. I think, we have 20 or even more sessions out there, all kinds of topics. So feel free to invite other folks, and feel free to invite other folks to attend these. There's a sign up box on every page of our website. If somebody would like to get email notifications about these webinars, If they're a friend of yours, they're a friend of ours, we would welcome them in the audience. They just need to give us their email address, and we'll make sure that they get notified just the way you guys are. So anyway, very happy again to have you here with us, Jolynn. There seems to be no end to what it is that you know. I don't know how you store all this information in your brain, but somehow you do. So we're always happy to see you. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So welcome everybody to Microsoft Bookings. So Bookings is an application, and by the way, there will be a handout that will be accompanying your survey. So you will get a handout for this session as well. So that will give you all the details to what I talk about here today. I want to demonstrate a couple of ways that you can actually work with Bookings. So what I'm showing you on my screen right now is I'm just logged into my Microsoft 365 account. So I just went to the internet, I clicked on my link that I have for logging in, just so you know where I'm at right now. But I want to explain first before we get started, what exactly is this app? Well, it is part of your 365 suite of apps. So it does work in conjunction with other apps. So I'll be demonstrating today how we can actually be utilizing, of course, different features through Outlook. We can also utilize it directly through Microsoft Teams, which is where I actually use it quite often these days. I really like that capability. But we can also embed a calendar that we create in Bookings onto a website or an intranet, depending on, of course, what it is that you're using. So you'll see a few examples of that here today. I'll kind of walk you through that flow of what exactly is included. So this program called Bookings is a calendar program. Your organization can have multiple calendars that could be available throughout your organization that can be shared, which of course I'll show you how to share those today. They can be shared so that people can click on the link to get into the calendar, and then they can see the availability based on the service and or the staff member that they want to actually book an appointment with. Whether it's going to be an hour long or it's scheduled for 4 hours, whatever the case would be. You're going to see that we can actually set it up with different services, and those services can have a set amount of time as well on the calendar. I think it makes more sense once you actually see it. But let's say that you're in an HR department, as an example. I have a couple of bookings that I've worked with some HR groups that they have bookings set up so that if somebody wants to schedule time to talk to somebody in the benefits department of HR, they could go directly to either a generic user where anyone could meet with them, or they could specifically choose someone from the HR group that we have set up as a staff member and then schedule that time with them. And they would be able to see what time is available. We're also going to see that we have available a buffer time as well, which I'll explain and tell you the importance of that. Extremely important to have a buffer. So bookings can be used for IT support, for scheduling time to work with an IT person to help them answer questions. I use it with my customers. So they can book time with me that they could either choose to have a consultation time, they could book training time, whatever type of service it is that I want to offer could be available through my calendar. And then they start with that service and say, how long do they need that service to take place? And the service is going to be like, what type of an appointment are you booking? So let's take a look at how this program works, and I'll show you a couple of examples of some different bookings calendars that I already have created, but I will show you how to get started from scratch as well. So if this is something that you haven't already started. So as I said, I'm in my Microsoft 365 account. I'm simply going to go over to my apps icon and I'm going to open up Bookings. So it can be that easy to access the application, depending on where you are and how you're working with things. I will show you how to do that also in Teams. Because I do definitely use it in Teams. So you're going to see right now I have two bookings calendars. One is virtual training company and one is for my kayak, stand-up paddleboard and canoe rental. So I'm going to come into my virtual training. I'm just going to click on the name of the calendar and it automatically opens the app directly to that calendar. Now, this is just a dummy one, kind of a test one to show you. You're not seeing my real calendar, but what you're seeing is on the left-hand side will be your navigation pane. From that navigation pane, you can access different options for setting things up, which you will definitely need to do when you create a new calendar. So the first time you come in and create a new calendar, you want to go into your business information. So I'll show you how to go into that, but there's a couple of other things that are important to understand as well. You have to set up your services. So my recommendation, which I highly recommend, plan before you build the calendar. Once you see how the calendar works, that will give you a better idea as to what do you need to plan for. But I felt that it was easier to create if I already knew, what types of services was I going to have, because then I could quickly get those services added, or clone a service and then just make cloning, just basically make it a copy of it. And then I can just make minor changes from there. So up at the top of this navigation, I'm on the calendar feature right now. If I had multiple calendars, like let's say I'm the HR department and I have employment, I have benefits, I have all these different entities to HR, they could have multiple calendars. I can navigate through those different calendars by going to the top where the drop down is, and then just click on the name of the calendar I want to go to, or just simply create a new one from here as well. But I'm going to stick in this one for now. And what you're seeing then on the right-hand side is actually going to be the calendar. So it would show if there were any bookings appointments already created. So what you're seeing is a navigation option. You can navigate by week, those kind of things. On the right-hand side, one of the features that is important to understand is adding time off. So if you're going to be on vacation, you don't want to have any bookings during that specific time frame, you can add in off time. If the organization is going to be closed on a specific day, you could add in that off time. We're not going to get into that right at this moment because we have some other things that we need to kind of set up here first. But just so you can see, you can also print, or you could export to Excel. So if you needed the calendar to be in a different type of a format, you could definitely do that. But let's go over to the left-hand side, and where I personally would be starting is your business information. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to click on business information. And what you're going to see is up at the top, you can enter your basic business information. So when I click on the down arrow, it's going to show different name, address, email address, website, those types of things. So you will want to make sure that you include all of that. So anybody that has access to your calendar, they will know those demographics. Also, there are policies that you can be adding in, policies and procedures. I actually do that with one of mine because it's a very important tool to have, that if you have specific policies or procedures that will be going along with the service, then you can have them initial off on those policies. Now that's a little bit beyond our demonstration here today, but I will briefly show you that in a different calendar. You can add in a logo. It's important to have that branding, that identity. So make sure that you are adding in your company logo. Whoever has access, make sure that you have access to your most current logo. That, of course, can always be changed. You want to be setting up your business hours as well. So somebody's not going to be coming in and scheduling a booking for a time when your company's not open. So make sure that you come in and you change or add what it is that you need to have. So if you need to add in Saturdays or Sundays, maybe you're not open on Mondays, make sure that you're modifying the calendar availability. Okay, so this is going to be for general. That doesn't have anything to do with days that you're going to be closed. So like if you're closed on a Friday for whatever reason, or Monday because it's Labor Day or whatever the case, Memorial Day, those would be an individual setting that you would do. When I mentioned back out in the calendar, that time off. So if it's just one specific day out of the year, it's a time off. It wouldn't be every Monday. Okay, so a little bit different on that help here. Now, I'm not going to get into the app integration, but we do have integration with other applications, which I'll be showing you that feature here today. But this is where you should start, just kind of getting that basic information entered within your calendar. Then the second thing that you want to think about is your services. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to go to the category for services. Once you come into services, if you already had services, of course, in the calendar, you would see those listed. Otherwise, you would just go to the circle with the plus sign at the top to add a new service. By the way, I just wanted to re-mention that this is a Microsoft app. So the learning curve to this application is very easy because of the fact that everything works and looks the same as your other Microsoft apps. So I felt it was very easy to figure this program out. So of course, that circle with the plus sign is just like we see in any other app for adding something new. But what you're seeing is the two that I already have. I have an initial consultation and I have an 1.5-hour session just to give you an idea as to what they would look like. Whichever one I click on, it shows me the details of it on the right-hand side. But just so you can see, if I create a new service, this is what it will look like for you the first time you go to set your service up. On the top left, you're going to have different basic details. You'll have availability options. You can even assign staff to that specific service. So if it were the entire HR department, but it was going to be a service related to benefits, you want to schedule a 1/2-hour session with somebody for benefits. It could be specific staff members that you are assigning. Now, I will show you also how to add staff members in just a moment. But what you're basically seeing is what is the name of the service, put in a description of it. So these are the things that you want to kind of think about. You know, what kind of a service are we going to be offering? So these are the things I kind of plan ahead. If there was going to be a specific location, you could add that as well. If it's going to be an online meeting, it does Teams by default. You can enter in the duration. You know, is it going to be hours, minutes, 1.5 hours, 4 hours? What exactly is your duration? Then you're going to see this buffer time. Extremely important to add in buffer time, because otherwise, if somebody comes in and schedules an hour meeting with you, and it goes from 1 to 2 o'clock, someone else could schedule 2 to 3 o'clock with you having no in-between time. So you want to make sure that you put in a buffer time, whether it's 15 minutes, it's a 1/2-hour buffer time, just in case the first one goes longer, or you need to get coffee, use the restroom, or check emails during that time in between appointments. Make sure that you are putting a buffer. Notice that there are a buffer for before the meeting and a buffer for after. So you could add both if you wanted to. We also have integration with pricing options. I don't use pricing in this particular calendar, but I do it in other calendars that I have available. But you could set a price for that specific service, and a new feature, you could even connect it with programs like Stripe. So we have some new integrations that Microsoft is just releasing, where we would actually be able to use programs like Stripe and others to connect to your bookings, so that the bookings can be directly connected, where you can send them an invoice and things like that.
Hey, Jolynn.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Finish your thought if you want. I just have a question about the buffer times. So I see there's a before and an after, which makes sense.
Correct.
So suppose you had 2 meetings that were, you entered a before buffer time and an after buffer time for each of them. If you butted these meetings up against each other, would it add the 2 buffer times together?
Correct.
Or it would. So if you had one meeting that had a 15-minute buffer after it, and a meeting that had a 15-minute buffer before it, it would really be 30 minutes. Okay.
Correct. So if they were scheduling for 1 o'clock, you had a 15-minute buffer before, they could be scheduling it for 1:15. And then you would be done at 2 o'clock or whatever the case would be. And then there'd be another 15 minutes that you would have afterwards before somebody could schedule another time with you.
Yep.
Okay.
Got it.
Good question. Good question. Now you can also choose if there's a maximum number of people you want to actually book that same time. So if you wanted to only allow 4 people in that booking session at that time, you could choose how many people there could be. Okay. And then also there is a button that you could slide over for letting customers manage their appointment when it was booked by you or your staff. Because I could technically book something and send it to someone else, and then they could manage it in the respect that if they needed to change the time or cancel it, they would be able to do so. Now, my recommendation is don't just put this out there and go live with it right away. Test it with a couple of coworkers first. Even if you have like a Gmail account that you can test it with for outside of your organization, I really recommend doing that. I definitely did some testing myself on 3 different computers that I have to make sure that it was going to work exactly the way that I set it up, that I thought I set it up. And there were some things that surprised me. The notifications is what surprised me the most. I love the notifications. So when someone does book a time with you, you get a notification, they get a notification, it goes on the calendar, goes on your Outlook, goes on their Outlook, or whatever calendar system it is that they're using. They could add it to their Google Calendar or whatever. So it's really a great follow-up, and you'll get reminders and all of that fun stuff. So anyway, this is how you would set up a service. This is the first part of it. If you wanted to jump into just a little bit more of an advanced thing that I want to talk about is a custom field. You'll see that I do have a custom field in another calendar that I'll demonstrate here in just a moment. But the importance of coming into this custom field is by default, we will be asking them to give us their email address, their phone number, etc. You can make those required if you want. So I highly recommend some of that being required. So they have to fill things out like an email address or something like that. But just so you can see down below, you could add a custom field if you had additional questions that you wanted to ask prior to that. Like maybe you want to ask for their, if I'm in the HR department, maybe I want their coworker ID number so that I can look up their information prior to the meeting. In my 15-minute buffer before the meeting, I can have their information ready to go prior to them coming into the meeting. So just some things to be thinking about. The other thing that I'll mention on this left-hand side is assign the staff members. Right now, because I created it, I'm the only staff member, but you can see up at the top where I can choose a service type where it's a single staff, or it could be a multiple staff that they could be choosing. So we could be having a meeting with 2 people. So if I were, let's say that I work in a manufacturing organization and I run the CNC machining or whatever, and I want to have a meeting with my supervisor and the manager of that group, we could have it set up so that it is a multi-staff meeting. And then we could choose who those staff members are. Okay, so this is actually becoming, Microsoft has been adding features to this program, just so you're aware. They just recently added this staff option for single versus multiple. Plus they added the integration with outside applications, like I mentioned, Stripe. Okay, now I'm not really going to add another service to this. I'm going to discard this or just close it. And you can see any of the details that I have right now are available over here on the right-hand side for my existing. If I need to modify an existing service, you just hesitate on the service, click on the pencil, or click on the copy to clone if you have a service that is going to be similar to each other. Like let's say it's the same service, I just have different times set up. You know, I have a half an hour versus an hour meeting. You could just clone it so that you don't have to redo everything on it. Or if you need to delete a service because you're no longer offering it, you can do that as well. And then over on the right-hand side, you have tabs going across the top, which are very popular. And of course, most of your applications these days, whether you're using OneNote, you're using Teams, you're using Excel, because you have your tabs at the bottom, but same difference, they're just at the top here. So I can jump into availability and staff members from here too. But Let me jump back over to the left and just kind of talk about a couple of other things here real quick. And then I want to do some demonstrations back and forth where I'll share my calendar with another computer that I have here so you can see how the bookings is going to work. So over on the left-hand side, if I go to the bookings page, this is one place that I can actually go to share the calendar, the bookings calendar. So you can see that I can copy it. So maybe I already had something that was going to go out to a group of people and I just want to copy and paste it. I could copy the URL for this calendar. I can even start a brand new email if I wanted to do that, or I can embed the HTML code as well. And I'll show you an example of that. I won't show you the background of how it's done, but I'll show you what it looks like on a website. So I could actually just copy the HTML code and put that into my website as well, or an intranet or whatever it is that you're using. I do use that in SharePoint intranets as well. But as you can see down below, you can manage your bookings page. We won't worry so much about all of that here today. The only thing that I'll mention is the time zone. The time zone is actually going to be your time zone. If you need it to be a different time zone, because I'm actually creating this for somebody in the Pacific time zone or the Mountain time zone, we could actually change it so that this calendar is a different time zone than your default. But otherwise it does your default by default. If that makes sense. And then on the left-hand side, if you were going to have multiple staff members, you could go to staff, and this is where you could add in new staff members. So if I go up to the top and say add new staff, you'll be able to put in any of your staff members that you want to add to this calendar, that they would be able to book that specific person. So if I have like my student one, if I want to have my student one become a staff member, I could add that person in, somebody within my domain. You can see that there are availability down below, because what hours does that staff member work? Maybe that staff member doesn't work Fridays. So we could actually edit their business hours to be different than the company's business hours. So each staff member could be a little bit different. Unfortunately, this isn't where we would come in and say, this particular person is on vacation this day, so we're going to, take Friday off for now. This is for their normal hours. You would do it in a different way when we talked earlier about the unavailability, where we would do it there. Now, I'm not going to make any changes to this. I'm going to go ahead and click discard. Okay, but this is where you could come in and do your staff members. I am going to jump into my other calendar that I do have created. So it's my paddleboard business that I have. But what you're seeing here is exactly what you saw with the other calendar. So you're going to see the same options across the left-hand side. Whatever we click on from here, of course, you'll see the details on the right-hand side. This one has a lot more services, and I do actually have this configured with Stripe, just so you know. So I have fixed price built in and all these other features. But one of the things that I wanted to bring up is if I go into the business information, when it comes to the policies and stuff, I'm not going to show you the real one. This is a cloned calendar for this, but I could actually have a URL, a link to the actual policies and procedures is how that would work. So here's where my terms and conditions are, and then I could have my privacy policies here. So I have terms and conditions for, cancellation purposes, we're not responsible for, if anything happens, that kind of thing. But just so you know that that's where you would put those. But let me kind of demonstrate how all this is going to work and what are you going to do with these. So first off, when I am actually so let me kind of jump back here for a second. If I go into my bookings page, this is one way that I could share this with other people. So I could click email and it will automatically start a brand new email for us where we would be able to have this as a link. You would probably want to change the subject, maybe add or change what it says by default, but this is what it's going to end up looking like for you. So I'm going to actually share this with my student one. I won't change any of the details here, but in general, I normally would. I would put in more details. You know, here's the calendar. This is what you can do for booking. This is how it works, whatever you would need. So I'm going to go ahead and click send on that. Oh, I should have. Let me do that one more time. I'm actually going to send it to myself so I can show you in my Outlook what it actually looks like. So let me send this one more time, because then you can see in my Outlook exactly what is this going to end up looking like as an email. So basically, you're just going to receive an email with exactly what you put in the body of the message, and then they will have a hyperlink to get into that calendar and then book their time and their services. So let me click on this so you can see what it will do. Once they click on it, this is how it's going to look. It's going to show them all of their services where they could select a service, and then they can select a day or time based on the service that they select. So I'm seeing that there's no availability. I'm closed during the winter time because I'm in Wisconsin. So just I'm not renting equipment out during this time, so I have no service availability during that time. But then they would come down and then they would put in their email address, their name, that kind of a thing. And then where the custom fields come into play, I have my custom fields down below because I offer delivery. I need to know where they need it delivered to, you know, what part of the lake, whatever. And then do they need a paddle and do they need a life jacket? So just to give you an example of how additional fields can be used. And you can, of course, make those required as well. I love this program. It has saved me so much time with booking with my clients or for this business. And I have so many people in different departments. I have the marketing department. I have marketing departments using them, tons of HR departments using it. I have IT departments using it. It's really endless on the capabilities that we have with this program. It's pretty neat. But anyway, that's what they will see. But on my other computer, let me go ahead and I'm going to create a booking. But in the meantime, what I want to show you on this screen is this is the website for my paddle sports rental, the name of the paddle sports bookings, the company that we have on the side. And I just wanted to show you, I did this before our session here today. I embedded the code for this schedule online. This isn't always how it looks. I usually give it a button, but just a quick show you how that works. If I click on this schedule online, this will take them into the bookings calendar as well. So I can have it directly on my intranet or on my website, etc. Wherever you can use your HTML coding, you can then give them access to it right from there. Otherwise, you can email it or copy the web address, the URL, and give it to someone that way. Okay. But now let me go back into my other computer here real quick, and I'm going to schedule a booking onto the calendar that I just shared, just so you can kind of see how that's going to work. But I do need to go into a different month. I'm going to book this out in May because it has to be after when we open. And then I'll book it for, and I'll put in a couple of details here real quick. I'll just use a generic email address and things, put in a phone number, put in any notes if I need to. I'm going to say, yes, I want a paddle. Yes, I want a life jacket. I want to, and by the way, we can get text message notifications. There is a checkbox that they can check to say they want text message notifications. Okay. Which is very cool. So it kind of fits in with all different scenarios of how everybody uses these. Okay. Did I choose the right service and the right time? Oh, I don't know if I updated my time, my calendar yet on this one. Well, maybe I'll go ahead and share my other bookings calendar real quick with Jolynn, or should say my other computer here. And by the way, this isn't the only way to actually share this. I'll talk about another way here in just a second, but let me get this student one added in here once it comes up. And I'll just click send. so I can have them go in. But just so you know, you can access bookings multiple ways. So what I started with was I logged into my Microsoft 365 online and then went into bookings that way. I also use bookings from, from Teams. I use it from Teams as well. So let me slide my Teams over here so you can see how that feature would work for you. So how you can use this in Teams is one of the ways that I've been utilizing it is on the left-hand side. When you are in Teams, you can add additional apps. So you can have icons for different apps. I use Adobe Acrobat quite a bit, so I have those pinned. But if I click on the dot, 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 I can actually click bookings and it's going to open my bookings program right here in Teams. I use that quite often, as a matter of fact. So let me go back into my other computer here while you're looking at that, and let me go ahead and say, get started. Welcome to bookings. I could create a new calendar. And this is how it would look to create a new calendar, whether I opened it through Teams or I opened it through my online. You would type in what the name of your business. So maybe it's HR department for the ABC company. And then I could put in what my business type is. I can put in an email address for where our response is going to be sent, because that's important to make sure that the notifications are going to go to the correct person. So if you had a generic email address for that group of people, that would be an option as well. I can put in a phone number and then I'll click save. But let me get this bookings booked here. Okay, on the 19th. Oops, I forgot to choose a service. And then I'm going to choose oops, I didn't have availability at that time. I got to get into an available time here. Well, maybe I don't have that one set up either. But what's actually going to end up happening then is you're going to see that it's automatically going to give an email message to the person that books. You'll receive an email message letting you know that the booking did happen, and you can confirm that booking as well. And let me kind of jump back in. So I'm in my bookings calendar right now. You can see up at the top, I'm on my schedule tab, but I also have a queue tab. So if I wanted to go in and see what I have coming up that is scheduled through here, we also have that capability as well. Okay. Okay, so let me get this booked over here on this so you can kind of see the back and forth of how this is going to work. I should have looked at my calendar prior to this because I didn't. And I can see that my calendar doesn't have any availability because I forgot to set that up prior to our class. Oh, that's totally my fault. But it's going to automatically add, just to walk you through what's going to happen, is it's automatically going to add that bookings directly to your calendar. So let me show you an example. Well, I don't know if I have any on this particular one, unfortunately, so I wouldn't be able to demonstrate that. I'm sorry, but I should have set that up on this calendar. Let me see if I can get back in here real quick and get that done so that you can actually see more of this. So business hours, I don't want to have any, I'm going to go back to the calendar here and make sure that today is available. 16th is, we're closed on that day for whatever reason. So I just wanted to look to see what days I can quick look on booking here. I can't go to that date. On the calendar, by the way, they're going to show the availability dates. Oops, I don't have it set up. So I would have to get that set up. I apologize for that. So I won't be able to show you the email that's going to come back once they click the bookings, but basically they click that service, click the date that that service is available. If there's buffer time, the buffer time will be built into the staff member that you're booking it with, and they will have it on their calendar, as well as they will have it, whoever the staff member is, I should say, will have it on their calendar, as well as the person that booked it. Both get it added to their calendar. You'll get the typical reminders for it as well, just like you would with any Outlook calendar. So that is all set up exactly the same as a regular appointment that you would have on your calendar. So let me go in and see if I can just book something directly through here. See if that will allow me to do that. Let me do 3 to 4, and I'm going to put in student 1 as being the, oh, I didn't add that person as a customer, but I should be able to put in their email address. It's not finding it in the global for some reason, but that's okay. We'll get that added in. I won't do more options. I'm going to click create. And I didn't choose a staff member, but I could have chose a staff member, because if I had multiple people in there as a staff, they would then be able to choose which staff member they wanted to actually book that with. So if I go back into my Outlook, I'm going to see that there was an appointment booked. So I got this email, and I can go directly into bookings from here as well. Okay. So it basically has me assigned because I'm the only person. So just so you can see on the backside what that's going to look like. So if I go to bookings, it will take me directly into that calendar as well, where I will be able to see any of those. So here's my calendar I just created, and here's my other 2. Also, just so you're seeing, when you come into all these different calendars through the bookings app, you can just share it from here without physically opening it as well. So if you want to share it without having anything go further, you do have that capability of doing that. But let me walk you through, now that you've kind of seen a couple of these calendars, what's important is when you do create a new calendar, let me walk you through that here from bookings. So I'm in the bookings app. If I come in to create a new bookings calendar for the very first time, I could clone an existing calendar, but I'm going to say create from scratch. So here's where I'm going to fill out that same information that you saw previously, where I would give the calendar a name. I would put in my business type. I could change the business hours right now, but I could, of course, do that later if I wanted to. And then you would go to next. So I'm going to say ABC company calendar. I'm just going to call it ABC. I won't choose anything else. I'll say it's IT support. I won't do the calendar or the business hours or anything. I'll click next. So it wants to know if I want to invite staff right away. If I do, I could click who they are, and then I could click next. And I'll show you another thing with customers here in a second. But I could set up services right now as well. So if you know your services prior to coming in because you planned things out, you could go ahead and set up your services. I'm not going to. I'm just going to walk through the wizard to get this created first. This is just asking who can book appointments. I'm going to say anyone can book appointments with me. It's not just my organization. I could say that anyone. So if I put this out on my website, or where other people, external people have access, they would be able to do so. And then I create the calendar. Once the calendar is set up, you can always go back in and add in your details, put in your staff members, change your business hours, put in any times that, you're not going to be available. So let's say that I'm going to change my calendar here, by the way, because I want to show you how this feature works. And I'm going to say that we're going to be closed on January 2nd. We're going to say we're going to be closed on January 2nd. Let me discard that. I'm going to click on this add time off. When you put in the time off, you can say, what exactly is it? The company is closed for the day. By default, the name of it will be time off. You could just leave it as that, but I'm just going to say company closed. And then I would choose whatever date that the company is going to be closed. Is it all day? So add in any of that information that you need. Once you're done, create that time off so that when somebody goes to choose that date, they're going to see that that date is not available. It will be Saturdays and Sundays, whatever you set up for your normal hours, and then any of those days that you put as being off. So that's an important thing to make sure that you do. So once you know your company holidays that you're going to be closed, whether it's a half day or the full day, make sure that you're adding those in. Okay. Who's ever going to kind of be maintaining that piece of it? But then again, you'd go into your business information, add in your logo, do your business hours, make sure that your business hours are entered correctly. You know, if you have Saturdays and Sundays that you're open, whether it's limited time periods or whatever the case would be, make sure that you have all of that set up. Do not invite other people to see the calendar until you do have your basics set up. Make sure that you have your services set up. If you're going to have any staff members, make sure that you have those all set up. So do a little planning prior to, so that you can get this going right away. Then when you're done, you can share it. Whether you're putting the URL, you know, embedding the HTML code, you're emailing it to people, however it is that you want to do that. Okay. But the customer side of this, if I go into customers, I could actually add in customers. So I can keep track of those customers. I don't have any customers yet, but if I wanted to add in a customer, I could say add new customer. And by the way, all of this is going to be detailed in that handout that you'll be receiving, but I could go ahead and put in any of their information that I need to store about that specific customer. There's even address information. So it's basic contact information that you can have about a specific customer. I have customers stored because of the fact that they are repeat customers. Because I have some of the same people that come back and book things with me. So I have them stored as a customer so they don't have to fill out their information every single time that they come in. It automatically knows who they are. That would be a benefit to adding them in. Okay, I'm going to click discard for right now, just so you could see that features that you could be adding in. As soon as someone does book, they are added as a customer by default, just so you know. But I usually go in and add additional information about them if I need to. Okay, so this bookings program allows you to create calendars that can be set up for specific departments, or if one department has multiple entities, you could have different things set up for the different entities. In some of the companies that I've worked with on the HR side and the IT side, to give you two different examples of those, I have one company that they just have one bookings calendar for the entire HR department. So if a manager wants to schedule time to talk about hiring a new employee, it knows who the staff members are for that specific service, or the benefits information. If we want somebody to come in and schedule a service for talking about their benefits or whatever the case would be. So they can go specifically to one calendar to have access to that. Or on the other hand, some organizations are bigger companies where they want to have separate calendars to manage each of those departments, because they meet with their coworkers, they meet with outside employees or outside staff, vendors and things like that as well. So they want to have it so that it's a specific calendar for each entity. We have inside sales versus outside sales sometimes. So we can have it be different for those as well, because inside sales is most likely going to be, you know, virtual or phone call. But the outside sales, we could actually have it be an on-site appointment that they're scheduling, or it could be virtual, you know, so you could have those set up as two different entities as well. When it comes to IT, it can be software related, you know, depending on how your organization works. If a department thinks they knew, I shouldn't have said it the way I did, but thinks they need a new piece of equipment, they could schedule a time to talk with somebody from IT to see what their needs are and those kind of things. And that's where it's nice to have those custom fields, by the way. So when we can add those custom fields to the services, make sure that then you're asking the right questions so that you don't have to be responding back to them and saying, okay, give me a little bit more detail. Put in those custom fields so that you are getting more information before you have that appointment with them. Okay. But with IT, I do things that are a specific software. So if we have an ERP system that I have a question about, I could go ahead and schedule with the specialist for that specific software, or for that group of people. because remember, we can have multiple staff members now, a newer feature to bookings. So kind of could be used within your organizations. Think about your different departments that you have and how each of those departments could be utilizing this. I cannot say enough about having this available for outside people. For me, the external usage is fabulous because I really didn't have a good way that I could share a calendar with people from outside of my organization and have them be able to book time with me. Otherwise, we would do the emailing back and forth to say, are you available these days? Here's my openings. And then we'd go back and forth till we find something that worked for, 5 people or 10 people, whatever we needed. This to me has saved me so much time just getting the appointment booked. Okay. That was all I wanted to really kind of cover with everyone today. Alan, did we have any questions that came through from the audience? I think you're muted still, Alan. Sorry.
I still can't learn this mute unmute thing, Jolene. I don't know what it is. I just, after what, 3 years of a pandemic, you'd think we'd be better at this by now.
Right.
So we did have one that came in and Jacob answered it, but I thought might be helpful to answer it for everybody. And the question was, is this part of, is this a separate app or is this part of Outlook or an Office suite?
Good question. It is part of your licensing for your Microsoft 365. So it isn't an add-on that you need to have. It is something that would be available for you. Okay, which is nice.
If you're, and if you're still kind of in that old school running on-premise Office, is this just not part of that universe at this point?
At this point, I do not think it's available there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's really
Correct.
a 365.
365 app. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. 365.
And then a couple other questions, and these are really
Yes.
my questions because I'm really interested in this. I think this would be useful for me personally.
Mhm.
And I keep my calendar. Well, there's a lot of things that feeds my calendar, but it eventually all winds up in Outlook.
Yes.
So I know you talked about sort of this team integration with a Teams calendar. I assume same thing, and maybe that's part of my because I'm always a little mystified of, so what's the difference between the Teams calendar and the Outlook calendar? I know we have a Teams calendar, but we don't. Yeah. So
they're the same.
Okay.
So they are integrated together, which is
Mhm.
fantastic because who in the world wants to maintain your appointments for multiple places?
Right.
So what you schedule in your Outlook calendar, you can of course see in your Teams calendar. And if somebody books something with you because you were the staff that they picked or the only staff for that calendar, it's going to of course be on either one of those as well. Because they all work together. And there's more and more integration coming, just so you know, for this bookings program, especially with that connectivity with outside apps. So on the left-hand side, if I go into this integrations, which you can see that it says new, we've got the Power Automate coming, and you can see that you can have API connections as well. So this is actually very, very wonderful. This is going to be a great integration to so many other things. It opens up the door to just oodles of different options that you're going to have. I haven't said that word oodles for a long time, but just so you get the idea, everything plays nice together. Everything within your 365 can be used together. Okay.
Yeah. Oodles. It's
Oodles.
Underused. I think we should start using oodles more.
New word of the day.
So then I have one other question, because I like the idea of putting this on a website. People book appointments with me. They might be interested in making a switch in how they handle IT, and I take those calls, and it would be nice to not have the phone tag thing. I'm curious, this is really less about how the application works and just, if you have any experience or have you seen what other people have experienced in terms of what happens if you do that? One of my worries would be if you put this out there on your website and anybody can book time with you.
Anybody can book time with you.
You just wind up with spam and problems. Does that become an issue?
It can be. Absolutely. And that's with anything. If you have a contact form out on your website, spam comes through those. I just got one this morning. It's just you're susceptible to that. And there's unfortunately not a lot we can that I'm aware of right at this moment that can read those and know that that's spam, because they
Yep.
seem to fill all the boxes incorrectly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we have a similar problem with, we have a form on our website and we get spam, sometimes. Is there any way to reject those? If I saw something coming in, and because they're easy to tell that they're spam, is there a way to just reject that, or do you have to just see them pop up in your calendar and kind of reject them one at a
It's going
time?
to come via email is where you can see where you could add it to junk.
Mhm.
But you got to be careful, because the address that it's coming from, watch the address, because it's your address. I just saw this. I have to retract what I just said. You can't add it to junk, because technically it is your address that it's coming to. So if
Mhm.
you go into that message that came into you and you block it, you're blocking yourself. So you're not going to get any others coming in.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
But
Got it.
shift delete to delete it, so you don't have to worry about it.
Mhm.
But I did want to show you, since you did bring that up about the website, this is what it looks like when I come in. So I came into the bookings page and I came over to the embedded, and I could just simply copy the HTML code. I don't do code. I only copy code.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I get people that do code and give it to me. So
Mhm.
it's nice that we have that capability of just copying it. And then I can go to my website or wherever and just embed that code. I add
Yep.
that web app for the code, and I just put it in that web app. Boom.
Right.
We have it.
Yep. Mhm. Yep. Makes
It
sense.
works very well.
Okay. So that's it for me. I don't have any other questions, and I do not see any other questions from the audience. So
I just wanted to really quick just
Mhm.
piggyback on Alan's question. So when you get the request via email, you have to accept that in order for it to be on your calendar, or
Correct.
okay,
Unless you say it automatically accepts it.
okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
Which you
that's a
most
good.
likely wouldn't turn on.
Yep.
Thanks.
That's a great question, Jacob. Yep.
And by the way, too, just an advanced notification here, when these calendars are created, you have to go into the admin to delete the calendars. We're not deleting them directly in the bookings. That is an admin feature. So something that IT admins will be maintaining. Okay.
Yep.
As of right now.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, great. As usual, any questions, certainly feel free to, reach out. I think you guys mostly know how to get in touch with us now. And just to give you a little sneak peek here, and this is hot off the presses, so these are not even up on our website yet for booking. They may be, well, they probably will not be up there in time for the, the follow-up email that will probably go out tomorrow. But in the next few days, and certainly by the time you get the next email next month, these will be up on our website. But in February, we have Adobe Acrobat, and this is kind of the Acrobat 101 session. We're going to be rerunning a session that we did about 2 years ago, Teams Beyond the Basics. And, I think you'll see what we may be doing, some reruns of the really popular sessions that we've done. And so we're going to be doing that in March. Microsoft Planner, we're going to do a full session on that. We covered a little bit of that in some of the past sessions, but we're going to be doing a little bit of a deeper dive into Planner. And then all the way out into May, when there will be no more snow on the ground, we hope there will be a SharePoint Beyond the Basics. And that should be good. We had a SharePoint 101, I think, not too long ago. So this will be kind of a follow-up to that. And with that, unless anybody has anything else, I think we're ready to wrap it up. All right. Well, thank you very much, Jacob and Jolynn. As always, I learned a lot, and looking forward to next time.
Sounds good. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.